Hello everyone, my name's Alex. I'm the lead historic interpreter at Fort Mackinac. I'm joined out here today by Tristan and Trevor. We're going to be telling you a little bit about target practice at Fort Mackinac during the 1880s. Now the 1880s, first off, is just a fascinating point in Fort Mackinac's history, but it's even more fascinating when you consider the target practice that's going on here at Fort Mackinac and all around the country. You see, up until the 1880s, there really isn't any emphasis put on target practice. The Army does not consider it a priority, especially when soldiers are using the older, smooth-bore, muzzle-loading muskets. However, following the end of the Civil War and the advent of more rifling in guns, and the advancement during the 1870s of our rifles right here, which are breech loaders, loading through the back with a metallic cartridge, the accuracy of these firearms becomes much, much greater. These rifles are capable of hitting targets upwards of 1,000 yards away. However, the Army still isn't putting much emphasis on target practice leading up through the 1870s. That is, until we suffer some rather humiliating defeats out west, such as Custer at the Battle of Little Bighorn, or several other engagements fought with different Native American tribes where U.S. soldiers simply don't do well. So following the end of the 1870s, target practice starts to become more of a common occurrence, beginning with the Laidley system in the late 1870s, which will begin to lay down requirements for how soldiers could become marksmen and eventually sharpshooters, and then perfected in the early 1880s by the blunt system. Now the soldiers here at Fort Mackinac would have been utilizing this blunt system to great effect, taking target practice at least twice a week, sometimes even 3 times a week, either here on this 200-yard rifle range which we're standing on, or perhaps even at the full 1,000-yard range closer towards the center of the island. Now here on these target ranges, they would have been practicing firing with their Springfield 45-70s, these breech-loading rifles, firing at a myriad of different targets depending on the ranges. Smaller targets for close ranges, like this 200-yard range, or all the way up to a 6-foot by 12-foot target for their full 1,000-yard range practice. Now we're going to step back and we're going to fire off a few rounds to show you what it would have been like for the soldiers during the 1880s to actually be practicing on their rifle range. So we're currently down the other end of the rifle range, down where the bullets would actually be impacting. And right behind me, you can see the ditch and the berm where the soldiers who would be down the end of the rifle range would be to both raise targets on rising platforms, and then once they were hit by the soldiers firing down the other end of the range, they would be lowered, and then the soldiers who were stationed down here at the end would patch it with a cornflour paste, depending on where it was hit, either with a black paste for the center or other rings, or white paste for the other rings. Now, if the target were hit, it would be the soldier's job down here at the end of the range to hold up little colored discs to indicate whether it was a hit, where they hit, if it was a miss, if it was a ricochet. But the berm that they would be hiding behind would especially be there to keep them safe, as they are down the end of an active rifle range. Now, as for target practice at Fort Mackinac, this would have been the height of the target practice season, right in the beginning of May to the middle of July, and then here at Fort Mackinac they would have to curtail it for the rest of the summer due to the large population of tourists coming to the island. You see, this rifle range would be right in the middle of foot traffic for a lot of people visiting the island in the 1880s, and you don't want anyone to walk in the middle of your target practice. Thanks to the improved target practice during the 1880s, Fort Mackinac will turn out some of the best shots in the Army, going on to compete at different Army competitions and civilian competitions to show off their improved marksmanship. Now, if you want to come out and watch us fire these rifles in person, we fire them all day long at Fort Mackinac, and come watch us do a whole bunch of other demonstrations as well. For more information, check out MackinacParks.com.